Woo, I think we're good to go. Let's give it a few more seconds. Hopefully everybody's here after a long break. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We're excited to have this session. We have some good information coming up for you real soon, and this is about the CMT. That's the chapter management tool. So my name is Cindy Sanchez. I'm one of your co-moderators today. A little bit about me. I am the former Region 5 Vice President. So I just closed out my 2-year term, and I'm still around to help out. I've been a member of SHEP since 2011. I started in University of Houston, still part of Houston Professional, and still around. Fun fact about me, I'm super into K-pop Demon Hunters right now. I think a lot of you guys can probably relate to that. Also, hand it over to Andrea, co-moderator as well.
Thanks, Cindy. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea. Some of you guys may know me. I also helped co-moderate one last year, but I go to the University of Miami. I was your previous Region 7 student representative, and this year I am serving as the Region 7 membership director, so I'll be able to help again lead the region. In terms of education, I'm studying a BSMS program with a biomedical and industrial engineering background. And in terms of my favorite ship memory, I would probably say that it would have to be last year's NELA's President Summit. I really love NELA, and I think that it's an event that really brings a lot of people that are passionate about ship already. So it really makes a great time, especially being in person. It was a really great weekend. So I'll go ahead and introduce our great panelist here, Isaac. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, introduce your chapter size to give our students a reference point, and then also share your favorite ship memory.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you, Cindy, for starting me off. Good morning, afternoon, and maybe evening if you're that passionate in Europe for whatever reason. My name is Isaac Perez. I am a process engineer at Bristol Myers Squibb. But within SHIP, I was the SHIP New Jersey president this past year. I serve, I guess it's a medium to large chapter. It fluctuates really. But I came from the Rutgers University chapter, which is a large chapter. So hopefully that contextualizes my ship experience. In terms of my favorite ship memory, honestly, I love every event. Every event's always great, but probably more specifically, we had for as a professional, we had a game night that was supposed to take only maybe 3 hours, but ended up going on for 8 or 9 because just the vibes were on. So it was a really, really fun event. And I think that I formed so many strong connections. So I think that was just a reminder of the familia that grows so naturally.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we get started, I wanted to just remind everyone of how to use this feature of the Q&A as well as the chat. So I already have some messages in the chat, so be sure to utilize that. But more importantly, use the Q&A section to give Isaac your questions. This is the perfect time to ask any questions that you may have on the top of your head, especially now that it is summertime. It is the perfect time to start planning before the classes start. I will say and preface this by the CMT tool is something that I have used it within my chapter and really has helped us in the times where the actual academic year starts and exams come around, and it just helps everyone be on the same page. So with that being said, I kind of will start off with the first question that we have here to just start off the conversation. So Isaac, how has the use of the CMT or the chapter management tool directly influenced your chapter's operations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to preface this question and every question I answer firstly with that I'm here giving you guys a lot of insight and advice, which I'm very excited to do. The best way for you guys to take in this insight and advice is to take notes throughout. So if you have your chapter management tool open already, make sure I'm going to directly reference the sections within it so that you guys can take notes there, right? So that I don't know if you guys have already done your first meeting prior to the fall semester, or if you're a professional chapter, if you guys have done a summer retreat. But hopefully all the tips I'm going to give you, you guys could just take notes right now so you have it when you discuss the CMT later. So that's the first part. The second part is that the CMT has enabled us to very easily write all of our reports. We have obviously reports 1 and 2. I know chapters get stressed about a lack of data. Maybe they feel like they can't pull together the graphs. The CMT has all the data right there for you, and it's on Excel. It's you really can't ask for anything easier to enable you as a chapter to provide the data to the national chapter about what you were successful in this year. So that is definitely like the easiest part. And I think you may think it's easy and like daunting at first, but if you look at the chapter schedule, all you have to do, and this is just what my personal chapter does, is we'll have meeting minutes, right? But our meeting minutes are structured so that we are taking down all the information that needs to populate the chapter management tool. So we're putting location, we're putting our planning for the event, our budget, our time, our organizers, our co-sponsors, right? All of that's already down. And then we just copy and paste it over to the chapter management tool. And then we have it there at the end of the year. And then we'll do a check-in every 2 weeks. As a president, I'm not a micromanager. I am definitely just like, hey, if you guys get it done within the next 2 weeks, please do it. If they take over a month, I start texting them on the side like, hey, please, please complete this. So once you kind of have that schedule in place within your e-board, then it's very easy to just start to have it all ready for each report, period. So
Yeah, I love that you're mentioning the report, how it's so easy to write the report because you have all your information in the CMT. And I know that's something that I personally harp on. I love using the CMT at the chapter level. And you know, there are some people who always like very confused about it, or they look at it at first glance and they're like, whoa, that's a lot. I don't know how to use it. So my next question to you is, do you believe your chapter's executive board had a thorough understanding of how to complete the CMT? Or maybe you can let us know, like, if you were familiar with the CMT, how did you help others in your chapter and your board understand how to properly use the CMT to be efficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. What our chapter does, and this is for Rutgers as well as for New Jersey, we have a summer retreat. And then for New Jersey specifically, during that summer retreat, we go through the CMT and explain what the purpose of every tab is. What I've done personally, and so this, it's up to you guys if you want to take this piece of advice, is the SWOT portion. That portion, it can feel daunting, right? It's a lot. It's like 3 different SWOT analysis you're performing. And for those who don't know what SWOT stands for, it's strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats, right? And it may seem daunting to kind of go through all of that. But the way I try to think about it is that when you're going through it, it should be natural. Like everyone knows their chapter at the end of the day, and so you know what you're best in. Like let's say your strength as an undergraduate chapter is you do really great recruiting at the beginning of the semester. Like that's your strength. Your weakness, halfway through, everyone gets caught up in exams, and that's a weakness, and that's perfectly okay. But now you have to consider to yourself, hey, do I really want to work on this weakness, or do I think that maybe I should optimize my strength? That's a chapter variability, but I want you guys to kind of start thinking about it in that way, and hopefully that makes doing the SWOT easier, right? I think that's probably the most complicated part. That chapter schedule, once you go through it and you look and you kind of see it's just organizers, it's just budget, it's just very straightforward questions, and then you have your goals at the top, which once again, you should be discussing prior to the semester or for professionals over the summer. It should make it really easy. So I guess one session, Cindy, to answer your questions very specifically, one session over the summer to go through each tab is what I highly recommend. And as a president, I would say take an hour of your time to just go through it and understand, and maybe even answer the questions yourselves, so that you can understand where am I going to go when I have this conversation with my board.
Yeah, I think that that's a perfect way of looking at the CMT. I also definitely agree in that sense. I also think that especially after CCLP, there would be a perfect time to do a post CCLP debrief with your chapter. And this is a way that you can just like get all this information, especially because you will be getting so much information and so many ideas from so many chapters that it would be a great way to just like get that momentum, put it towards making that CMT plan. And then you use that, especially perfectly how you said it, Isaac. It helps you just know what the strengths are, and also helps you get ideas of what are the things that we're not so good at. Maybe these are areas that we can like get questions prepared for, use the connections that we have here from CCLP, ask those chapters, or even President's Summit, has some of those questions coming into it. So definitely great advice that you shared there. This question is a little bit related. I know that you definitely gave great advice of how new chapter executive boards will be tackling the CMT. Do you have a specific like first step or a specific way that you tackle it to really give like members that great idea of the structure of how they can really break it down?
Yeah. So to use the chapter management tool itself, I would say it's I'm trying to think of the best way. Really, it's going through each question and just verbally having like a discussion on it. Depending on your chapter, you either may have that conversation at that moment or ask people to pre-populate some of the sections, right? If you're a large chapter, I'd recommend that. If you're a smaller chapter, I'd recommend just having that meeting where you guys all talk through the CMT together, right? Something that I've implemented at a chapter level is before even doing the chapter strengths and weaknesses, so that I guess the chapter management tool, you can also use it for the retreat to kind of plan out your entire year. And what I would say is that you would also want to understand the strengths and weaknesses of your board itself. So a workshop you can do prior to doing the CMT is going through your own strengths and weaknesses. And obviously, very vulnerable. It's not easy to kind of just say these things to your board. But if you want to build a strong foundation, doing that prior to then doing the strengths and weaknesses of the chapter itself gives people a much better understanding of where someone is coming from when they're describing, hey, I think we're a little too cliquey as a chapter, right? If we're being very honest, that's a problem I've seen in chapters before, right? And if that's the case, people may not feel comfortable saying it during your SWOT analysis. But if you have this workshop beforehand where you talk through your own personal strengths and weaknesses, then people feel more comfortable saying, hey, they know that my weakness is, I guess, my ability to come out and speak. I'm an introvert, right? And if that's the case, then when you say that statement, you know where they're coming from. It's like, oh, this person's an introvert and they don't feel comfortable talking to many people at a chapter level. They're just very good at community service, and that's why they're community service chair, and that this is where they're coming from. So that's another piece of advice I'd give is that a workshop or kind of like mentally preparing yourself prior to going through the CMT also helps a lot. This chapter management tool, people really underrate it. I think we live by it at the New Jersey chapter, right? We have our own meeting minutes, we have our own everything else, but we make sure to fill this out because without it, you can't really understand what your chapter did as a whole for the whole year. So it's a really, really useful tool in that sense.
Underrated for sure. You mentioned that the CMT is underrated. I highly believe that. Everyone, all of the chapter leaders that I've talked to within the past year, you guys know everything that I've been talking about and leading up to now. CMT is such a helpful tool. Now, we do have a question on the Q&A portion. So the question is from Francisco Arriaga. How important is it to review the CMTs throughout the year? Do you schedule a separate meeting to go over them, or do you just bring them up during e-board meetings every now and then?
Yeah, that's a great question, Francisco. How important is it? I'll speak from my professional chapter experience, but it does vary from chapter to chapter. I would say if you review the CMT, and I'm talking like from a goals perspective, you should review your goals. You should first complete them in the summer. And then depending on how you have it structured, we have our goals built into our meeting minutes. So our meeting minutes at the top have our goals so that we're starting the chapter kind of reminding ourselves like, hey, we need to start marketing 4 weeks beforehand, whatever it may be. And so then it's easy for us to kind of keep the goals at the forefront of our minds. So then we don't really revisit the goals portion of the CMT until halfway through. So during like our winter break to hopefully apply to both professionals and student chapters. So that's how often we review just the goals. In terms of the CMT and kind of all the events that we did, I would say we probably review it like once a month, once every 2 months. It doesn't need to be super consistent, but what people need to do offline, right, outside of meetings, is make sure you populate it, right? It doesn't have to only be the president's responsibility. Delegating is a skill, and I am a professional. I've been working in the industry for 3 years now. I have learned that myself. Delegating is very important, and this is where it starts. This is where you start to build that skill of feeling comfortable of, hey, if only the organizers, whoever organized the event, you're filling out the CMT. It's your responsibility. I am the president. I see all the minutes, but it's up to you to transfer all the appropriate knowledge into the CMT. So that's one place where you can start to build that strength within your chapter, right? And we do that during e-board meetings, so we don't schedule a separate meeting to do that. I value time. Time is your most valuable non-renewable resource, guys. You should try to optimize it wherever possible. It doesn't necessarily, and this is not even Shep related. This is just life, right? I think in life you should be really, your time is super valuable, and don't ever forget that. So try to, if you can be efficient during e-board meetings, definitely try to be. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And those are all really great advice. I really hope that everyone's just taking notes of all these different ideas that they can take and have these like tips going into their next e-board meeting. I think I definitely agree with all the things that you said. We have another question here in the Q&A. So this is from Marisa. My chapter has never used a CMT before. What's a good way to start so we have a smooth ride with it?
Great question, Marisa. I think you don't have to necessarily be the president to do it. I'd say building a group of people who are passionate or excited to use the CMT together, whether that be at an e-board meeting or whether that be before some sort of a meeting, right? Get the people who are passionate and go into the CMT and kind of read through it. If you go, I guess off memory, right? You put in your executive info, that's like one tab, which is very straightforward. You guys could all do that. Then the second tab is when you do that initial SWOT analysis. And if you read through it, and maybe even read it out loud as a team in that call, because the questions are things such as like, where is, I think the last one is like value evaluation, where it's like, what is the value that you're providing members, right? And it gives you a description there on like what value evaluation means. Really, it's like, if I'm going to a community service event as a general member and I complete the event, did that member feel like they completed volunteering activities, feel like they're servicing their community? And if your answer is yes, then that's a strength. And like, how did you do that? Talk through all that, right? So that's the best way I would initiate the idea of using a CMT, is getting a group of people who are excited and who understand this idea of using a CMT, and then start having that separate meeting where you discuss and just walk through each tab together and start filling out if you feel comfortable. If not, maybe you're like, oh, we're missing our external vice president, or we're missing our treasurer, and I think their opinion would be really good. Then you can hold off, or you could still put your ideas. I don't think there's any harm in that either. So that's the best way to have a smooth ride, is you have this initial meeting where you talk through what the CMT entails, even for goals. Once again, if it's a small group, that's okay, but you put your initial goals down, then at your next e-board meeting, you'll be like, hey, we walked through the CMT. These are the goals we came up with. What do you guys think? People can disagree. And I think that's where that workshop I mentioned earlier about strengths and weaknesses is really important, because then people will feel comfortable saying, hey, I wasn't at this meeting, but I think this goal can be modified. I think we should shoot for 40% attendance increase for next year, or whatever the number may be like.
I like that. And I'd like to also add, so I believe Ashley has put in the chat where to find the CMT template. I'd also like to mention that in that same chapter resources page on the Shep website, you're also able to find 2 examples, one for a professional and one for a student. So this is your first time viewing the CMT. Go ahead and take a look at those examples, see how other chapters are using it. I believe Isaac's chapter's CMT is also in the chat, linked below. So make sure to check out those resources. And also, you're here to network, right? To learn and to network. So talk to the other chapter leaders, whether they're in your region or not in the region, just start the conversation. We're going to go into a breakout room soon. And that's definitely where you want to get those connections and see how others can help you and you can help others.
Can I hop in there, Cindy, about that point on the breakout rooms? Us as a Shep New Jersey chapter, we have a sub-regional representative for the New Jersey chapters, and she did an amazing job this year. She held 3 sub-regional retreats for the sub-region of New Jersey, and at every single one, there was very productive conversations amongst chapters, right? So for us, our biggest chapters are, no offense to any other chapter I may not mention here, our biggest chapters are Stevens, NJIT, Princeton, and Rutgers, right? So these chapters, especially at the first one, when they're talking to each other, you get so much more of an understanding and scope of like, hey, I didn't even think of doing an event this way, and you can include that in your CMT, right? Like, you're like, oh my goodness, like, why don't we recruit more at like specific like major events, right? And you can include that into your goals for the CMT. And so that's how you don't forget it, right? I work in like a GMP facility, so good manufacturing practice, and document is a very big concept there. And you can think of the same idea here in what we do at SHIP, right? It's try to document all these great learnings. It needs to be somewhere, and that could be your CMT.
Absolutely. And I think you all kind of touched up on this, how you guys have your meeting minutes on there. So I'm assuming that you have modified the CMT to fit the needs of your chapter, right? So with that same mentality, we do have a question from Marcos. It says, why can't the CMT allow for an event creation that will then pre-populate the various tabs like marketing or something of that nature with associated subtasks for tracking, so we don't have to keep re-entering the same information or have a template to pre-populate? But I'd like to say it is on Excel, so you could create your own macro for that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Cindy. I agree. Is that the CMT isn't locked. It's not this Excel sheet that is untouchable, and this is the only way to use it. I'll be honest, I've already during this call multiple times have showed you very different ways to be using this piece of this tool, right? So each chapter has their own distinct ways of using it. I think, Marcos, you have the right idea. We are all engineers. Maybe even you can figure out a way to use Python. And obviously I'm stretching it, right? But the idea is that use this tool to your advantage in whatever way your chapter works best, right? This is a skeleton that will enable you to take it to where your mind wants to go. And Marcos, it looks like you have the right idea where, like, if you want to kind of have this pre-population of the various tabs with, an event creation tab, I think that's very valid. I think that makes a lot of sense. And, it's up to you, right? It's your motivation in SHIP and your passion that needs to kind of guide that endeavor, right? You have to champion that idea within your chapter.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and I'm glad that we touched on this. I feel like this is something that when I mentioned it to chapters, are like, oh, we can modify it, and it's like, yes, like if that's what what works best for your chapter, do it. Like it's just like a starting off point, but I'm sure that a lot of SHIP staff here will also say that, like, if it means that it's helping your chapter be much more successful, go ahead and use that. We have another question here in the Q&A. I think it's also a really great question from Leonardo Lujan. What are some strategies to get eBoard support in adopting the CMT for the first time?
Yeah, great question. So I would say that there's like two main ways. There's one that I've executed myself, and there's kind of like another philosophy, right? The main way that we've done to get eBoard support behind the CMT is that whenever whenever the organizers start to complete the CMT, I guess they don't complete the CMT yet, but when we're talking about it during eBoard meetings, I say, hey, like, let's set up a call. The first time you do it, let's set up a call and let's just do it together. We populate the CMT together. They ask any questions they may have, and then I held their hand right through the whole thing. And then for next time, boom, it's easy. Because once you do it, you truly understand how simple and straightforward it is. Yes, the feeling of redundancy is annoying, but I will tell you that in corporate America, there are redundant meetings that you're going to have to give your updates in multiple locations. And that's just a part of life, right? So I think, honestly, getting used to that a little bit, it's not the worst thing in the world. But if you want to optimize, again, like what we talked earlier, you can integrate your CF. Maybe you spend 5 minutes to bring everything from your minutes into the CMT at the end of the meeting with just the organizers. That's another way you can do it. I personally haven't done it, but that may be another strategy that will get the eBoard support behind it, right? Making it as easy as possible, because human beings, we want to follow the path of least resistance, right? Rivers, they just follow the path of least resistance. That's how they get to the bottom, right? So I would recommend the same kind of philosophy, right? As engineers and as people within STEM, you kind of have to follow and adapt in that sense.
Well, we are at 1:25, so we do have 5 minutes left in this session. If anyone has one last minute question, we can take it. But I'd also like to remind everyone to make sure to take the session survey. It's only 2 or 3 questions. It's very quick. Go ahead and take the time now to complete that. And thank you. Do we have one last question? If we don't have any more questions, then everyone should have the CMT.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. I have one here that I think maybe someone's afraid to ask, maybe. Isaac, what has been the biggest challenge for your chapter when using the CMT? I know we've definitely talked about all the great parts about it, all the
Yeah.
benefits, but do you mind sharing with us any challenge that you've had?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I mentioned the point where I'm not like a micromanager. If I am not proactive about checking and making sure that people are doing the CMT, it can fall off very easily, right? It's a tool that the good thing is all the information is in some sort of like meeting minutes. Um, but I'll just at the top of the meeting be like, hey guys, make sure you fill out your CMT, and let's say I have a chance to check that week, people may just not do it, and so it's that buy-in that we talked about at the top of the not top of the call, but the question before. I think that challenge the way now that I think about it a little bit longer is delegate the responsibility is pass it to the VP and kind of have the VP be the in charge of making sure the CMT is filled out the week after. Because if you as a president everything stacks and like the straw on the camel's back, it may break at some point. And to avoid that, that's where you have to be willing to delegate responsibilities. Another big part of that is you also want to prepare future board members to possibly fill into bigger roles, right? Whether that be president or vice president. And so that's kind of where you can delegate the responsibility. So for people who are proactive, for people who want to be a part of the board next year, you can give them this responsibility of, hey, you are going to be the CMT lead for this month, maybe, right? That's even better because it fully takes the load off your shoulders and it makes someone else kind of be the one in charge and they have to get familiar with CMT, right? So definitely the challenge there is just towards the end of the term, people begin to just do a little bit less, and that's across the board, right? I think most chapters can say that, and you just have to think of creative ways to make it easy, right? So succession planning, this is a very easy example of how can we do succession planning while also ensuring that members are being proactive.
And then we just have time for one last question, which will actually combine the last two questions that we have on the chat or the Q&A. So how did you adjust your daily schedule to make time for the CMT? And with that, second question is, what are some effective strategies to proactively fill out the CMT throughout the year? So maybe we can combine that. I guess like I'm hearing a lot of people might think it's a lot of work to fill in the CMT. So what are some of the strategies that you have?
Let me erase that myth, right? The CMT is difficult when you delay it for a very extended period of time and you have a lot of chapter events. The one part of the CMT that you need to, if you're not listening, like if you're, let's say if you're over on your side of the monitor, not fully paying attention, pay attention to this, right? The CMT, all you really need to do throughout the year is the chapter schedule portion. The chapter schedule portion is a copy and paste job that you can do once every other week if you are a student and feel stressed. But that is only you. You should have an entire board supporting you behind this mission, right? So if you discuss it at the beginning, in the summer, say, hey, once every event is complete, bring all the information to the CMT. You delegate the responsibility to the organizers. You do, as a president, you do the check. Maybe the vice president does the check. If they don't do it, then you ask to set up a quick call. It should take at maximum 10 minutes. And you're all good. Right. So hopefully that gets rid of the myth of like the CMT is this big scary thing. There are other tabs. The SWOT analysis, yes, those exist, but that should be done, let's say at the beginning of the year. You do it that one time. You revisit in the winter, and that if that's your first time using the CMT and this is the way you use it, you've done an amazing, fantastic job. And now for the next year, they're set up to use it more effectively by further filling out the SWOT analysis, by making sure that every goal is being hit within the chapter management tool, right? Is that clear for folks? I hope that makes everyone feel a bit more comfortable with using it.
Yes, definitely. And I will say, in the next check-in that you will have to submit, like for your chapter, you will have a space to submit your CMT. So if you definitely have that filled out by that time, you submit it, and then ship staff will give you feedback. So it's also a really great way, like, this is a live document. I like to see it, like the CMT that you have at the beginning of the chapter will evolve and grow as you go through the year. So just be sure to just like incorporate it as much as you can. It'll make that transition as easy as possible. Those are all the time that we have for questions today. Cindy, do you have anything else to share on your end?
Nothing else. I expect to see really good CMTs this year.
10 out of
Yes,
10.
definitely. Yes, and thank you again, Isaac. And be sure to fill out the session survey at the end of this. And I think we are all set for this session. See you all in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, use the breakout rooms effectively. You guys got this. I have a faith in all of you. If you guys have more questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. I think if you search up Isaac Perez Ship, I'll probably come up. So
Awesome. Thank you, Isaac. And thank you, everyone.
Have a good one.